This is Lincoln 2's 2018 facility plan meeting with the State Construction Department, specifically the School Facilities Division, and we'll introduce ourselves around this table first.
J.C. Inskeep, Business Manager, Lincoln 2.
Brandon Finney, Planning and Finance, State Construction Department.
Amber Leach, Planning.
Troy Decker, Planning.
Charlie Kaufman, Planning.
Raj Davi, State Construction Department.
Lance Johnson, Project Manager, School Facilities.
Alan Allred, Superintendent, Lincoln 2.
Warren Hicks, Facilities Director, Lincoln 2. That's all of us.
And Violet is not going to join us?
Oh, she's at a spelling bee today.
Okay, well that's an important. Raj, what's your official title?
Accounting analyst.
I'm just going to say Raj.
D-H-A-M-I.
Donovan?
Yeah.
Thank you. Simplifies his name for us, which is really nice. Okay, I think we got everybody, guys, right? Okay, we're looking good. I'm going to turn off the video because we usually have streaming issues. I just wanted to run it at the very beginning. So with that, then we'll just kind of go on. So one of the things, I think, one of the improvements we've done over the years is basically all the details of your facility planning, updating the database, make sure you have land correct and all that stuff. We do those prior to the meeting. So when we get to the meeting, we really talk about the heart of the issues. So I'm going to run down through this. We're going to quickly talk about things that are really more of formality now because they've already been checked by the district and the department. And we'll just roll on. So if you have something to say, great. If not, we'll roll on until we get to the things that are really the heart of the matter. So with that, then, I think we've got everybody caught here. Paul Severson has not joined us. I'll add him back in if he comes. So tracks and deeds, one of the things that we've really been trying to communicate clearly with districts and are getting better at is why do what we ask you to do and how does it impact the bottom line, which is money, right? And so it's really important. A lot of things that we do or WDE does has an impact on basically your block grant. So acreages is one of them. And that has to do with groundskeepers, the number of groundskeepers that you guys are funded for. So we always check these. I think we've gone through, Charlie's done just a fantastic job on the GIS sites. Sorry. And he's just done a great job with that. So I think you guys are good with that.
Actually, every year we go through the verification with WDE, and actually that's what I'm doing right now when I can get time to go through that. I'm working with Jed from Sycarel.
So one of our tracks that is going to be dropped off if the House bill passes is the old track. It's literally a parcel which has the old storage building, which does not have educational space. So that'll come out of our funding calculations. We will lose 1 acre of our 214 acre calculation.
This one, the old lot. So right now just shuts down.
Yeah. It's literally an abandoned school that we use for storage. But if the House bill passes, then that has to come off as far as major maintenance calculation, groundskeeping calculation.
Which bill is that?
I have to look too.
So that's a bill that's on the block grant side.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. So that's something probably we'll probably have to talk to Jed. So early on, maybe holistic understanding.
So when we have to, when I talk to him, we'll see how the session turns out.
Put that on the to-do list. And, you don't know if it passes though, but you're saying there is a bill flowing through and may have effect on certain land pieces.
Land pieces that are not occupied for educational or have an educational building on it. So Laramie, they've got their great big football field and sports arena and everything. They're not going to give them maintenance and operation and groundskeeper money in the block grant to take care of that because that's above and beyond the model.
Yep.
Unless it has an education facility on that track, you don't get money.
That's correct. Interesting.
Ouch.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of districts that have pretty good system.
Correct. That's what they're going after.
Yeah, that's why,
And then what we'll do here is it won't be removed off our database, it'll still be there, but when it shows up on the WDE side,
We won't,
They'll-
basically we'll have to pull it out.
they'll end up having to sort of.
So
Interesting.
next year thought is if we show track acreage and report 214, I wonder if we have a new section that's added that appropriations to the block grant is for 213, because then you can actually show them that. That would be a thought down
so
the
we
road.
can work with JJ, how to, maybe somehow you filter it. This is educational, this is just,
Correct. District.
above and beyond the education.
Interesting. Okay,
Huh, yeah, that is.
Classification.
okay, that sounds good.
Different classification.
Yeah.
Okay, so property profile, same thing. They have to do, like the actual property description and grade configuration and those all go over the side. Although they're obviously very familiar with your grade configuration, have their own database on that. The ones that have effect on your major maintenance payment is the gross square footage, and within that gross square footage, ADM is put in the calculator and drives the allowable square footage within that gross square footage. And so that's what affects your major maintenance. So we try to go through these and on a yearly basis to make sure we're accurate. And of course, these are really, I think, quite accurate now because we went out or had a third-party consultant go and measure all your buildings and categorize all your spaces.
The other thing we provide them as well is teaching stations for them. We update that on a yearly basis.
Okay, so enhancements, you've reviewed those, you're looking good. So that storage building, you do have one that's in motion. Lance, you apparently have a enhancement acknowledgement sheet that you're looking at for the storage building.
That's already been taken care of quite a while ago, hasn't it, JC?
It hasn't been submitted to these guys yet, Lance. I had to fix that, we call it the pole barn, the 7-Eleven.
Yeah.
It just hasn't hit
Right.
yet. So yes, you and I are done.
But yeah, we've already gone through I've already reviewed it and signed off on that.
I have some corrections and I got some to you, so.
Okay, so I'll just say here then, Lance, thanks. That's why we have these meetings. The district needs to submit the sheet and a letter to Shelley to be placed on the upcoming commission meeting agenda. Sound good for acknowledgement? Then we'll add that. Okay, district appropriations. So we've got two of them, the new admin building. Looks like you guys have a little bit of extra money there. You basically said final payment issued the 20th. And has that been paid?
That's
Okay, so it sounds to me like Brandon, project 1099 is complete, revert remaining funds. Everybody good with that? Revert.
Yep.
Okay, so we do this
So that's the admin.
as a group, so we don't make mistakes and revert, and then all of a sudden we're shy of money.
And 11-month is done? Yes. 11-month warranty.
Yeah.
Okay, we're good.
Yes,
Okay.
literally all that we have is retaining, so it's not even an AIM login to request funds because it literally was retained already held at the district level. So
Oh, okay.
we're completely done.
Great.
Nice. Okay, we will take care of it.
All right, and then Thane Elementary Classroom Edition, that's obviously there's no money remaining, so no funds remain to be reverted, right?
Yeah, and I have
Reverted was zero.
reverted in 2017, so we closed it all now.
Okay, so it's all closed out.
Yeah.
Okay, Lance, security projects.
Okay, well, Lincoln number 2 is all over this security stuff. We've had a few meetings and they understand fully on how to get this money deployed. They're right in the middle of it, but I'm going to go through this anyway, Alan and JC and Warren, and then we'll talk about that in a second. So the original funding was in 2014 for $90 million, or $9 million for the security money, and the projects were defined in 2015. January 2015, the facility assessment was done by FEA, and they funded eight priorities of security, and that's been listed, and you're well aware of what those 8 are. and what your funding has been done, what it has been funded for. And a school may expend up to 10% of the amount distributed under the major maintenance program for a period commencing July 1st, 2016 and ending July 1st, 2018 for the safety and security of the building needs and the facility needs. This is your 10% security money that we're talking about. And you're aware of what you have there. And there's also concerns about the design of some of these security projects, that there's no money provided for that in the security funding. So you may use your major maintenance money up to 10% of the 2017-18 funding to do that, or regular major maintenance as well. Moving the funds between appropriations, as you well know, because you have done this, must be in writing and acknowledge that no back funding will go back into those projects. And yet the SFD will honor those agreements, which we already have with you. The goal of the security funding is intended to give each district an equal opportunity to provide security to security standards for Wyoming K-12 schools. The School Facilities Commission and Select Committee for School Facilities have stated concerns about the slow deployment of the funds. For the 2017 supplemental budget, the legislature, the SFD proposed an additional $17.9 million for the next two priorities of security funds, but that was declined by the legislature in part due to slow deployment for the 2014-15 funds. The SFD is encouraging every district to have all the funds currently appropriated fully encumbered, so on behalf of the school districts, the SFD can make a request for the next round of security funding. If you get with Amber, she can also maybe point you in the direction of additional funding from Homeland Security. And also March 13th, there's a follow-up conference, security conference, that's hosted by Fremont 24. It's going to be in the Central Wyoming College in Riverton. And I know, Warren, you were at that last one we had. That was a great conference. So this is another one that just follows up if you guys are interested with that. And I think you probably have seen the flyers on that. So with that being said, Troy, this district is moving full speed ahead on two-way communication. We've moved money around to focus on that element in itself, and we're moving forward.
Okay. Anything else? We're good? Okay. All right, let's go on down to capacity, Charlie.
Sure, absolutely. So this is what we'll talk about. Right now, I just have everything separated out for you. Cofield being farther down, and then the high school, middle school separated from the elementary school. So the elementary schools we did this way because right now, currently, Afton and Osmond, that combination are over capacity. And we are looking at them because they are high priority need at this point in time. We'll actually bring up those documents now. We can talk about that now, or do you want to wait?
Anything else on this one? I mean, other than these two elementary schools,
Capacity.
one's a K3, right?
Right, and feeds Osmond, which
Feeds
is
the other one.
4-6.
Yeah.
Correct.
And we had kind of a little bit discussion yesterday or day before we were talking about, I mean, in order to look, so just like here in Laramie 1, they have, they have like K3s, K2s feeding, 3 6s or 4 6s or 4 5s or whatever. And so we've kind of taken a whole look at both elementary schools, what the capacity is. But when we start remedying that capacity need, we have to go down to the individual school, and they're going to show you that today, how that's going to make a difference.
Sure. It's kind of I mean, obviously you have some growing trends in your district. You're looking at your middle school there at almost 87%. We start looking at the capacity closer once it passes 90. So that then classifies as a low after 90%. And then looking at everything else, all things considered.
Okay. So you can see that, right? So, and we just, and we used to do this, but for illustrative purposes, we just basically bring in your enrollment projections here. But I went ahead and brought it up, the actual spreadsheet. So when we, let me make it a little bit larger. So our methodology does a 10-year trailing data back from, October 2nd of whatever WDE reports each year, go 10 years back. So that's basically the methodology. I mean, we've got them clear back, I think, into the 80s, if I recall.
1980 is the first year I have enrollment entries. Yeah.
So we don't include all those because they're not really relevant to the methodology, what state statute talks about. So you can see when you do these, there's a survival rate, and those survival rates is kind of interesting. It takes us 10 years. It basically follows a class. So, for instance, your 2000 kindergarten went down to 96 students in first grade, 94, 91, 91, 94, and then, if I'm reading that right, 99. So you kind of follow them through, and we actually can do this from K through 12 and follow those survival rates, or we do it just in this case because we're looking at Afton Osmond specifically. We just confine that data to this. So when you look at your numbers for the two schools and how you class size your, basically per year you have an average of about 105 students coming into kindergarten on a yearly basis average. And then as you kind of come down here, you can see that your actual numbers, let's go back to that so you can see what's happening. So your K3, so we're following those K3 numbers for your Afton school, and then your Osmond 4-6 numbers. So we have the ability to track each school individually and yet look at it holistically. And then what we do is state statute says when basically you need to, when you size a school and remedy it for capacity needs, you go 5 years past substantial and anticipated substantial completion. And Brandon and Lance and these guys are going to talk to you about that just a little bit and what these little squiggly lines mean. That's an important part of this. So let me kind of go beyond this just for a second and let Charlie, we're going to go back and specifically talk about the documents. And these guys are going to work more with you offline, out of this video time. And you guys are going to have to finalize this. We'll use one of our architects as well in-house and work with you guys and make sure we solidify this. Because we are actually, Dell, our director made a decision that the two are here are Lincoln 2 and Sweetwater 1. You can see you're both above the 100%. And they made a decision that in the supplemental budget, they're actually going to present these and recommend funding. Okay. So now there is one little thing we should say about that. The director, of course, has the authority to do that and stuff, but he also is directly under the governor. So he always talks to the governor's office, say, okay, do you want it in the budget or not? And then the governor will make a recommendation. And then I don't know if that, I think that would influence whether or not it went during the supplemental general session to the commission for a recommendation, but the timing of that. So I want to just make sure that even though Shelby and Dell have the desire to put this in, there's other conversations with people above them that will have to be presented for them to move forward to the commission's recommendation. So at this point, though, I can confidently communicate with you that their intention is to recommend this for the supplemental budget. So with that, do you want to talk?
Sure, absolutely. So no, just more for your information here. We classify capacity issues on 3 tiers per SFC policy. High priority 100% plus, which is where Afton Osmond is right now. And then medium priority between 95 and 100%, and then low priority between 90 and 95%. So that's basically, this is just what it is statewide for your information where you guys are at. So being right now, you are the #1 capacity in the state at a high priority.
As a percentage basis.
As a percentage basis. Yep.
That's good news.
Yep, that is very good news.
Alan, you're always wanted to be #1.
I'm #1 in a lot of ways that don't matter.
Anyway, so more for your information than anything, you guys have been growing steadily over the last few years, and right now, and way to make it fair for everyone across the way is we do it off percentage basis. So Right now, they are the number one capacity in the state.
Okay. So with that, let's kind of get down to the nitty gritty of discussion, state statute, and so on, methodologies. So we're obviously subject, we talked about 5 years past substantial completion. These guys kind of worked at, if you were to get money through the supplemental budget, the general session, when potentially could you have, and follow through with design and then construction, when would be the potential time? So Brandon, you want to talk about this, or do you want to actually
We'll just
get
go
into
through
it?
the sheet.
Okay,
Probably at the end, when it says request for budget.
Yep.
Here's the number, and then we'll go through it.
okay,
There's other stuff here.
okay, good. We'll kind of
Yeah.
keep flowing then, and when you're ready to jump in on
Because at the
that,
very end, it says, do you have any requests?
Yep.
Then
then we talk about it. Perfect. Okay.
Don't get sidetracked.
So with that, then you can see how we're doing the 5 years past. We kind of, and you can kind of see really on that. And you can see that on one it's 514. When you go to a PDF, it kind of starts moving stuff up, and that's 393. So when we go down to your Afton Elementary School, we try to bring in some illustration here. So substantial completion would be 2021 is what we're recommending realistically through Lance and these guys work. Your projection then would be 514. Okay, your building capacity, okay, according to methodology, is 432. So the difference is 82 seats. So we could then basically say that we could size this kind of, and we'll talk about the other methodology here that influences this. So we have to at least build enough onto the wings, and I know we've had a talk on this, how to do that, of at least 82 seats, projected out 5 years. Does that make sense? The next one then, and I just provided a little bit more information. So your K1 classrooms, the average classroom is 775 in this building. I think that's right here, right? Is that first? Okay.
No, that's
K-third,
2-1. Okay. So I looked at, though, your latest information, and your K1's classrooms are average of 775, holding approximately 15 students per classroom, because that the methodology says divide the space by 50. Okay. And then the average K2 or 2-3 classroom is 745. We divide those by 40 according to methodology. Okay, so not little rugrats, but all on the floor, so they don't need quite as much. And that's 19 students. So that's one thing we provided just to help the team as you guys look at this, that we want to kind of continue to honor, I would assume, your design and consistency from classroom to classroom to make the building as efficient as possible. So on Osmond's side, the substantial completion, same 2021, projection is 393. If you come up here, 393, 5 years out. And so your building capacity at Osmond is 362, so you have a difference of 31 seats. And so, and here's just a graphic of your visual of Google Earth and a graphic of your floor plan there. Okay, so far so good. The average force of the classroom is 851, equaling 21 students divided by the methodology. So something similar to that, and meet your other, match your other ones if you so desire. So the average, I wanted to provide just a little bit more information here because sometimes we get these wonderful questions, in legislative meetings that it's like, well, is this really their growth and will they continue and stuff like that. So I just put the average grade level enrollment grades K through 3 is 115 and 4-6 is 120. So, as you move forward, though, it's kind of interesting because your basically your survival rates up here, and this isn't in all communities, it's amazing, but I would assume you probably have some kind of screening of when kindergartners go to first grade, and sometimes you may hold them back for another year until they're developmentally mature. Would that be fair?
The parents have the option.
Option, okay. And so when you have this 97 survival rate, it's probably, we're assuming, parents deciding, hey, you know what, let's wait one more year before they go to first grade. So you are sometimes losing, not sometimes, on average, you have a 97% survival rate. So about 3% of your kindergartners don't move on to first grade. for particular, maybe that reason, or maybe they move out of town, who knows?
More movement,
Yeah, there may be some, okay. And then from that point forward then, from first grade to second, you actually have 102 survival rate, which means, right, you're picking up students on average. You gain. So basically you are, from first grade on, your survival rate, you're actually adding students as those students move through the grade levels. You're actually adding students to each class. One way or the other, I assume they're coming into your community. Okay, so I just want to provide just a little bit more data there, just to make sure that we don't necessarily not communicate clearly when we're moving through the commission stuff. That this is a district that continues to grow as students move through your grades. And then we have this thing called the maximum allowable square footage allotment methodology. And it's been used to size the recommended additions for Afton and Osmond. And we're going to be talking about that just a little bit today, and Brandon can get into the details of that. So we have a capacity methodology that tells us how many students on an equitable basis across state fit in with regard to your teaching stations, each school. And then we have this way, and this is actually kind of an interesting methodology, because in the past what we would do, JC, is we would, and Alan, and what we would do is we would say, if you need 80 more students, we'd basically say, okay, 80 more students, and we would basically say, how many classrooms would that be? But we all have to recognize and acknowledge that depending on when each of these buildings were built in the past, they probably don't match up to the existing design standards or adequacy standards that are presently in front of the commission. And particularly if you guys built under bond money in the past, there's not going to be a great correlation between the adequacy standards today of what you would get and what you did build under a different standard of whatever that standard is. Okay, and sometimes, a lot of times in school districts, it's probably more of what can we fit within our bond, but who knows. So they're going to be talking about the difference between what you designed it for, what it was built for, and what the present adequacy standards for, and then the capacity, the number of students enrolled and where we need to go. And then if the building was way below the present adequacy standards, then probably, even though you only need X number of students to fit in within that additional square footage, you may not have designed that with circulation space, with number of restrooms, with common spaces that would meet the adequacy standards today. And so the adequacy standards basically say then that even though you only need X number of students, we probably are going to make a recommendation to provide additional square footage to bring your building that was built under at a different era up in such a way that it meets the adequacy standards. And then over time, it will allow equitability in sizing of schools and gross square footage across the state to help everybody, even though you may not be necessarily getting a major capital, a new building or something. It'll help everybody kind of get closer and closer to the same standards, space by space, building by building. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay, so anything that guys would
I think those are those ones.
Okay. Now, the other is reverse, by the way. You may have, for instance, and they're going to talk about this, Osmond and Afton, okay, they may not have the different.
No, they're not going to have it.
Yeah. So you may have potentially, and I bet this is what's going to happen, you may have less students being added to one school, but more square footage being recommended. More students at the other school and less square footage in order to make equitable size for gross square footage. Is that a fair statement, Brandon?
Yeah, that's almost what happens.
Okay, cool. With that then, I will go on here and we'll just continue on. Okay, so did all that make sense? Okay, we'll roll from there. So major maintenance calculations, allowable.
Sure, absolutely. So when we get, every year we get a lot of questions about how we do major maintenance calculation, what are the main drivers. And you probably know this, well, so your ADM is your biggest driver, drives an allowable square footage for your district. And so there's a couple stories this tells here. In your district in particular, you know, you have Cokeville, small school, large buildings. They were under the bond. And so you have that instance, and then you have like the Swift Creek High School. Again, not a lot of students, but fairly decent sized buildings. So you have that, and then you have the elementary schools, which are over capacity. So a different dichotomy for your district for sure. But that's what part of the story that it tells. The other part is that we're also not funding major maintenance where we need to be funded. And so this past summer, we went through and did an exercise of the study trying to find ways to close that gap. Unfortunately, the only thing that did survive at this point is the 7-year phase-in. It was in House Bill 33, Randy, is that right? That this major maintenance study stuff was in?
And we'll
cover that in a minute, but I just wanted to make sure that I didn't.
32.
32, thank you. And one part of that, you know, we're looking to try to find ways that as we head to an asset preservation to be able to have schools be able to preserve their buildings. And so part of that is closing the gap between what you're getting funded for and what you have on the ground.
So you can see obviously that you guys are short almost 300,000 square feet, give or take, of funding for the actual square footage that you have. And so, yeah. And then obviously our role is to make recommendations to a commission makes recommendations to the select committee then goes to the process, and who really makes those final decisions are the people who hold the purse strings.
So I did want to talk about the note here, you know, we're talking about Cokeville Elementary School and Cokeville, the junior high school, a little bit for your district, what your thoughts are heading forward with that.
You know, I'll defer that to the superintendent, Alan. Did you hear that, Al?
Well, you're kind of hard to pick up. Not everybody's,
Oh,
we're not
sorry about
picking
that.
up.
I'll speak a little louder. So I was reading the note in the facility plan template about Cokeville, and what are your plans for Cokeville moving forward?
Well, you know, about 25, 30 years ago when they added the auditorium there, I told Dr. Lowe, superintendent, that you ought to add that onto the elementary. That was the new school back then. But they didn't. They added it on over where it currently is, and then wanted to keep the gymnasium, the old gymnasium, and so they made the school go from the old gymnasium to the new auditorium, which gave us the Taj Mahal out there. So the problem with the K-12 allocation there or building there is that I don't know where we would come up with 6 or 7 classrooms for the elementary to be there without some major remodel.
This open area, this is the auditorium. You'd have to restructure inside this area. It's a giant hallway. You'd have to restructure. And then you have 2 gyms. You have an aux gym and a regular gym. And you'd have to restructure educational space underneath here and an educational space underneath there to get rid of it.
Yeah, JC's just kind of pointing at what you were just talking about.
Yeah. So in order to have, in essence, there's just classrooms just straight through this grid. And then you have a gym. This is kitchen. This is the gym right here, music room, cafeteria right here. So classroom-wise, if you were to take this square foot, take it out and put it on top of there, you would take those 2 areas. You'd literally have to interiorly gut that inside of that to get that to the educational space. Because they're open hallways, really.
In my sense of humor, if I go like this, will you follow it like a cat?
Well, so with Cokeville, the old school was bonded. That was one of the old.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
that one was.
None of these are part of the school facilities department.
And so it's one of those issues, you know, going back and when back in the bondage, you sized it, like you said, you know, kept all those things on there. And so you're left with this square foot conundrum.
Yeah.
That and when was that finished? It was finished 2000?
Cokeville High School was built just after Star Valley High School, so I think, 1999, right in there.
I came in.
Same architect out of Salt Lake built them.
Okay.
VCBO. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
We understand that. The restructuring, that K through 12, if you went through a K through 12 restructuring, I bet you're probably $5-6 million interior that going to accomplish that.
And no more for my benefit. I had seen the notes, so I just kind of wanted to get an elaboration on that, make sure I understood what you're.
Same community, same location, the kids bus, it wouldn't affect anything different as far as getting kids to a location. You just have to take the interior of that location and restructure it.
So, from, I don't know, if you were to rate that thought from 1 to 10 as in, golly, you seriously would potentially consider it versus, it's just a thought. I mean, is there actual internal discussion at the board level of that, or is it just a?
Not at all. There hasn't been any discussion at all. I brought it up to Brian, the principal out there in Cokeville, and there just isn't any class space that we could move the elementary into the high school, middle school facility. It would take some major remodels and a minimum of 6 classrooms. The kitchen is sized fine, I think, for anything we'd want to do there. The dining room's a little small, but they can stage their lunches. The library is big enough for a K-12 library. It's only partially full right now. There's a whole lot of open space in front of the auditorium, and there's a whole lot of, seems like, hall space throughout the whole thing. I don't know how you could remedy that, but it would take a major remodel to add those 6 classrooms. I think that's down the road. Before I would put major big bucks into restoring anything at the elementary school in the future, I would look to how you could maybe bring it into that newer facility.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. We should appreciate the thoughts here. We're going to jump down here because Brandon has another meeting he needs to go to, and then we'll come back and talk about some other things. So let me do a hyper jump. Okay. We can cover this, Brandon. I think you want to talk about basically
Budget.
Get this now, right?
So right there.
Okay. So just real quick, a couple things. As Troy mentioned about the budgeting process, the bill, we have a couple things. This bill says it's for emergency or unanticipated needs only. But 2115-119 is the commission shall annually submit to the school facility select committee and the governor. So we're going to take the needs as we're identifying here in this meeting. But what Troy was saying is, you don't want to go to the governor and have $200 million and then he has to cut them all. That doesn't look very good. So there's sort of a discussion that takes place with the select committee and the department and the governor and the director on what dollar value is appropriate, what's not appropriate. So that hurdle will be addressed. What we did though, since this is a capacity project, jump to the the folder.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll show you what I've got. That, and then if you could snap that to the left. And then downsize it a little bit. And then pull that up to the right.
Is that good?
Perfect. Yep, I can see it. And then on the right,
You just hit that right arrow. So we would see it full screen.
There you go. Okay, so I'll run through Afton. So this is the square footage. It's the design capacity, as Troy was talking about, it's going to be 514, which drives 68,040 square feet, 48 square feet. The original gross is 62, so the addition would be 5460. I then take that number on the left-hand side and I put that into the SFC allowable, 5460. And I have the design capacity calculated of 82. And it has essentially the dashboard at the top. Come down, you have land, you already guys own the land. Planning, we don't have any planning funds in there. And then jump down to the construction. So what we have first in line 4.3.1 is demolition. And on the right, if you could pull the right down, it'll help give the picture. Okay, so the next is and I think JC, we did this a while back.
Last year.
So what essentially that first line, if you could go over here, Troy, and scroll up a smidget. Yep. So the first line, we've got demo, we got $54,600 to come in and access each of those facility wings. Essentially, open up the partition, peel back the roof, and get access. We've got in the new construction, we've got 100 square foot of the hallway. So within here, you'd have to do a little bit of configuration to, get access in there. And then we would build essentially these classrooms, and this is obviously just conceptual, but 4 classrooms, 1,265 square feet apiece on the size of that, which is bigger than what you currently have. So
That's include the hallway.
yep. So you have a little more room there. We have a size adjustment on 435, and that is due to it being less than 10,000 square foot and being remote. So usually the cost is a little bit of, logistics and supplies and services out there. So we've got some money in for that. Scroll down a little bit more. On the FF&E, there's an FF&E methodology that I have included in this backup. And I included that, so it's $2,400 per student times the number of students. And these are just some of the drawings to try to look at, we were going over where we'd access the facility. Maximum out, that's the methodology, so if we ever go back, we all hit the lottery and leave tomorrow, people say, where'd they come up with this? I got that attached. I also got the FF&E one attached.
Okay.
So we've got that all in there as backup. And then that all rolls into here as the summary sheet.
So, naively enough, FF&E is worth $199,000 for those classrooms.
It is because it's based on a student. So economy of scale. So when you have a couple of classroom students, you may pay $500 a chair, but when you're buying 1,500 chairs, you're probably going to get them for $250. So it sort of takes into account the new methodology, economies of scale and the size. So you have a conservative FF&E budget.
Yeah, I think that's great.
Yeah, you do.
I didn't think he was think it was conservative.
It's
I was excited.
Yeah.
No, $199 for FF&E for, in essence, those classrooms. That's pretty good money.
Yeah, I would say.
JC, thanks for focusing on that because they were teasing me for doing the same thing yesterday.
Yeah, and this is one of the first times this methodology has been applied.
Yeah.
So it's like a gut check, and that's the first thing I said is, wow, that's.
Because we did those other schools, and I had 188,000 for 58,000 square feet. Yeah, I mean that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
199 is like, wow, you're knocking that out of the park. Okay.
Well, yeah, I mean, look at the positives. One, you don't have to spend it all.
Right.
You're fully funded, so when you start a project out of the gate, you complete it without going for unanticipated needs. Back to the legislature, that causes a whole ripple effect that the project could stall out. So
your design fees are at the top then. So
Yep.
I missed that.
they're all based on the cost of the construction.
Yeah.
Down here, we also got contingencies.
Okay. So
That's what it's on that.
$500,000 design, per square footage. What are we running per square foot?
Well,
And-
right here, so you're at $284.73, plus you'd have to add in this cost for your remote access. So you're pushing
Yes.
close to $300 a foot.
That's great.
Okay.
That's great.
You got money in there for the city planning, utilities, and all that, and then jump to the top. So when Lance and I are talking first year design fees, this is a small project, so we bumped that to 12%. On average, you probably get 8 to 10, but this is smaller, a little more remote. And then we've got owner's rep. I don't know if you would need one, but we put in some money for that.
We like that. CMAR was a good experience for us in a different capacity. So yes.
Construction manager at risk?
No.
No comment.
Okay.
Commissioning agent, we've got that.
It's a dirty
materials.
acronym in this office.
Sorry,
Yeah,
guys.
yeah.
We had a good experience.
Yeah, if you want to blow it, anyways. We've also got design contingencies in there, and then your owner's overhead. So we've got the sideboards on it. I think what we need to do next is go into some more detail and double check and verify as a team that, hey, did you guys forget about this or what about that? Okay. So if you could jump to the other one real quick, it's very similar, and there's some things that I wanted to get, and then the other document that supports it.
I mean, compared, I've done 3 elementary schools, add on to Austin and add on to the middle school through you guys. And this budget right here is, bar none, it's better than any other ones that I've had.
You know, one of the things, I mean, through building $1 billion, we learned,
Yeah.
oh, forgot that cost.
I was just saying,
Oh, you
that's
forgot that expense.
And,
really.
and then also, again, with our new methodology, we're trying to right-size the building
Right.
to meet the present adequacy standards. You probably under-designed it in your standards, or potentially over-designed. It matters on the.
Budgetary, that's the best I've seen, so.
So here's your.
Okay, so then scroll down, just hit this real quick. This one's only, I think, 31 students, but if you look at the size, it's actually bigger. The addition, as Troy was just mentioning. But what I wanted to point out, what Lance and I came up with, is we looked at the site, right? So you've got, you can't build to the north, you can't build to the west. You can only sort of come down here and build in this block, right? So what we looked at, so we took at this conceptual idea, double loaded corridors, classrooms extending east, and then scroll down a little bit. And then I have this in here so we could sort of think about it, how it would connect, the hallways, you know, all that. And that's the stuff I want to keep refining with people,
Right.
like you guys that actually build a building. I thought of here, but I don't know a building. And Lance said, oh, that's food service. He's like,
Yeah.
you're going to block that off. You could come here, but you got the gym, you know, so it's,
It's north facing.
yeah.
The problem, go back up to the Google Earth. The hardest part, which we want to solve the problem with you, is this elevation cut right here that we're just not seeing from an aerial view.
Mhm.
The further we go out here, you're going to actually start having yourself a 6-7 foot cut elevation wise.
Okay.
But then we've talked about adding this way before. We've talked about coming this way before.
Yeah.
This right here, you can't see it either. You probably got yourself a 6 foot elevation cut. Come from here, clear down to that bottom. We have a drainage issue. It's so funny it doesn't show this, man. This is sloped into a hole both directions.
Okay.
I mean, we want to move forward. We want ideas, but the one thing we got to figure out is elevation at either location is sloped back to the building.
And that's right. I'm with.
That's
'cause
my hiccup.
I wanted to get some input. So now maybe we got to have it cut.
Yeah.
Now there's retaining
Correct.
walls.
There has to be,
You
because
know.
it is a slope.
You know, one of the things that may help you, Brandon, and I did this,
There's elevation that way too.
and that is
And
you to actually do a site.
we created.
Before we put it in the budget.
Yeah, and just walk through it and go, oh, okay, visual,
We'd love to, really,
So-
no complaints, we'd love to do it, but all the years that we've thought about doing it, we just need some more thoughts to figure out how we can do that, so.
Okay. So what I think we'll do is maybe what Troy's saying. We have the sideboards on the budgets now, but we actually go there in person and we close it out as a team.
Perfect.
That way we have. Oh, you forgot this, Brandon. There's $500,000. You know, I didn't know.
But we'd love to do it.
Okay. Nice meeting you.
You too.
Okay,
Nice seeing you.
thank you, Brandon.
Yep.
Have fun, whatever you're doing.
Interesting.
Okay, so with that, Alan, did that make sense on your end?
Yes, yep, you've got some elevation issues that you need to come look at on site.
Okay, so this is just kind of a first blush look at, at applying new methodologies, and you guys will work through this to basically realize a more formal recommendation that goes forward to the commission. One of the things we've changed in the last who knows how many years, 3 or 4 years for sure, and that is that we're just, we either used to hire consultants to do this cost estimating and brainstorming, all that stuff, and then they come to us and we look like, you're asking for the Taj Mahal, or why didn't you include such, and then it ends up being underfunded, and then we have to go back to the legislature or take out, unanticipated
Right,
monies.
anticipated.
So I think that it's always better when the state, the district, and then if we need a consultant in addition to, and we have in-house architects, 3 of them,
3. correct.
4 of them actually, George too.
Oh, yeah, George. is here.
And so we'll involve them as well, and that way, when we get done with this, we'll all have complete confidence that we did the best we could with all stakeholders involved. And then
Perfect.
it's always great for you guys to know exactly what is moving through the process. You'll know exactly what is being asked for, why is it being asked for, how much, and then the justification for what is being asked for. And then you guys start, and we encourage your district. We've been talking to Sweetwater One. They're in the same kind of capacity issue, and they've been really talking to their legislators because, we're finding out, and you well know this, that you want, even in something like this, especially in down economy, you want your legislators involved. And so
we definitely.
Go ahead.
What would the timeline be?
If this was going to be recommended, we would put it and get it ready in June. And I think it would be presented to the commission probably in June in an overall broad sense, and July would be with the commission a very specific request. And again, and we want to emphasize, and I wanted to back this up just a little bit. Remember, it's a conversation between the governor, the leaders of the select committee, and then our commission. Because if the governor says, "Man, guys, this is better in the biennial budget," then we'll all be aware of that, and because we don't go around trumping governors or select committees. So it's going to be a conversation. Our desire, we're going to put in today that we're actually going to pursue this in the supplemental budget, but there's a lot more conversations that need to occur.
Great. Okay.
Troy, would you
We
like to?
appreciate your support on this.
You bet. Go ahead, Lance.
I'm sorry. I was just wondering if you wouldn't mind scrolling down a little bit, and we can go over the notes for what we had conceptually thought of for the overall project plan. I'm glad you discussed the funding strategies, but maybe you can go through that and see if that sparks any interest with the district or has any comments on that.
And this is using the assumption that everything got funded on July 1, 2019. So I just want to make sure we have that out first, that we have that. That's the assumption that we used up front.
So, yeah, and we use the word, Brandon and I started doing this about a couple of years ago, assumptions, right? You have to make assumptions and then set basically the time periods of what you need. And then, of course, our cost estimating has to do with cost per square footage, when it hits the ground. It has to integrate with the enrollment projections and then our various methodologies. So I think, Lance, what we'll do here is I think we can get into a lot of details here, Lance, and we can certainly walk through this. What I probably recommend is one of the architects, Brandon, at least Brandon, an architect, and you actually going to the district, and then you guys refining these assumptions on site and make sure they're just as solid as you guys believe they can be.
Yeah, that's fine, Troy.
Okay. All right. JC, Alan, kind of makes sense, everybody? Any other questions from again, we're going to get down, you guys are going to get down into the details of these in the future, but there's a very, very thorough process by which we go through in order to make sure that we meet your needs and abide by all policies and methodologies and state statute and all that stuff. And it's a great process.
It sounds good to us.
Okay, we're good. All right, so I think what I'm going to type here is that I'm just going to put SFD is going to consider recommending additions
Right,
to Afton and Osmond. Oops. Elementary schools.
Yep.
year's supplemental budget. All right, is that good? I just really
Perfect.
simplified that. Piece of cake. Okay, let's go back up. Great discussion. We really appreciate you guys and look forward to continuing to work with you. I know you guys have been patient. And these are a little bit, I mean, let's face it, you know, to get on the front end of these things, I think if we were, you know, rolling in billions of dollars like we were, we probably could have gotten this a little earlier. But in reality, with the economy and what's occurring, basically we're being a little bit responsive, reactive rather than proactive in some ways. But thank you for your patience as we move through that process.
Yeah.
Let's
It's
go
perfect.
on. Let's go on charter schools. You don't have one. Alternative program or school, you have a preschool program. That's fine. Yep. And so, okay, got it.
Oh, wait a minute, they do have an office school, they have Swift Creek.
Oh, are we missing this?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, we do.
Well, yeah, I was like, I'm sorry, I didn't catch that earlier, but yes, they have Swift Creek High School, sorry. Yeah, that's what happens when I look at too many documents.
What's our enrollment on that one?
It is
40-ish. 40-ish?
reported by WDE in the 30s. 43.
43. That was, we'll just go back to October, whatever.
Yeah, 43 on that. And so, yeah, I'm sorry, wow, we about blew right past that.
That's all right. That's why we're all doing it together.
Yeah, so what ends up happening when I look at too many documents, sometimes things fall through the cracks.
Okay, that sounds good. JC, you were gonna say
No.
something?
So they moved into the old admin building, correct?
That's correct.
All right, how did the transition go over? How did anything?
That was great. We used major maintenance money. We did some small reprogramming inside of the facility to give them educational space, and we just paid in-house and took care of it.
So how many rooms did you touch more or less on for that?
So, 1, 2, 3.
Hey, Troy,
4.
Yes.
I have a question on that alternative education as well. Within that same facility, we have a program we call Bridges, which is for our high need students that they've already completed 5 years of high school and are in a program until their 21st birthday or through their 21st year. They're on an IEP. You know, federal regulation requires us to provide them with education through age 21. And so we have 6 kids that aren't showing up on that enrollment, probably at Swift Creek, that occupy probably at least 20-25% of that building. I don't know how you would account for that in that space as well.
So what we do is, and Charlie is, about every other year or so, we update our usage of spaces within each and every building. And so, and
This
Charlie.
is why I was bringing up the question. So we'll update the usages for this building, but we also need to have, did FEA come through a measure? When did they come?
We just had them last year, though.
Okay.
Yeah, so they came up part of last year, and because we got a new district office, they came there for that, and then we took them across the street for Swift Creek High School.
Okay, so did they capture those?
Yeah, they
Okay.
did.
Okay,
So
so
we
that's what I
captured
wanted to
them.
know.
Yeah, we captured that.
So what I need to do on my end then is we just need to update the usages.
Yeah.
So, and,
So this summer, fall, Charlie will push back out the location reports, which is space by space usage. He'll create a column that basically says, do you have any changes? And if so, in usage, what? And then we'll categorize those, and then we'll account for them as updated as we can with cooperation from you guys and making sure those spaces are categorized correctly.
If we'd not had them come out, then yes, I'd understand, but they literally stood there in my office and on my new office, and we took them across the street to do that.
okay, well, good, yes, and I believe I wanted to make sure that they had done that. Yep. And,
New office with
But we filled
new
out,
desk.
we filled out all the paperwork, Warren and I actually
Okay.
did all of that, so.
all right, yeah, and so I just want to make sure we had gotten all that done. Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
good. Hey, thanks for pointing that out. So we are,
You bet.
we are accounting for that, and we'll update that this coming summer, fall.
That's perfect.
Condition, this is just a great graphic, I think, illustration of life cycle of buildings. Yeah, preventive, routine maintenance throughout the life cycle of a building, its existence. As they age, obviously, major maintenance comes into effect, and is a great resource from the state for you guys taking care of your buildings. And then as it gets even older, then obviously we look at major capital infusion of money to either renovate or replace or add brand new square footage if need be for capacity issues at the as buildings age or as capacity increases. So, and you think that's real basic, but it's really important. And you have to remember too that we're not only now dealing with school districts, we deal with state agencies, and then it's and Alan, I'm sure you could probably attest to this. You know, we do, when different people have different roles in districts, and superintendents have a vast amount of responsibilities, but they're really focusing in on educating children. And so we have, I heard the other day, and I had another superintendent confirm it, there's about give or take, about a 25% changeover in superintendents on an annual basis. And then we have business managers that don't turn over quite as much. Facility directors golly, when I started in 2005, I think there's only like maybe 5 or 6 facility directors that were here then in the state. So as they change over. So at any rate, as we have changeover of personnel, we want to make sure that we provide adequate training and help to all of them within districts to help them take care of their buildings. From a statewide basis, it's called an FCI score, but the higher a score is on a building, the more deferred maintenance is attributable to that building. And so this is just the first page of 400 and some schools, our educational buildings across state. In our present budget, of course, I don't know, I haven't heard of the latest adventures in the legislature, but we had asked for and requested from a 0.4 and above some kinds of monies to be attributed to the facility condition index buildings that were scored and had the greater deferred maintenance value to them. So we'll talk about that at another time, I'm sure, to review that. For you guys, here's your buildings, and your buildings actually are in outstanding shape. I mean, you guys have really, really good buildings. So that has to do with how well you take care of them, as well as the capital monies and major maintenance monies that have been provided for you guys to take care of them. So those are important decisions. Let me run through this real quick, and then we'll ask you a couple questions here. You guys do submit a 680 form through your business manager, which is just a reconciliation of your major maintenance account and what you spend it on within the district with the funds that you receive from the state. This is from last year, a year ago, I guess, just what you guys put your money toward. It's just an example of what you did last year. We can go back 10 years. We can accumulate all that data and actually show you. We were thinking about that. Maybe next year we might show accumulation of what your priorities were in the last decade. And so this is just illustrative.
We have done that for a couple district requests for that. So yeah, that's something I think we'll look at doing next year.
Okay. And then here's a numerical breakdown of which building and what money had been spent last year, and then system by system within each building, money spent, that added up to those numbers. I'm just trucking right along here. And then low condition scores. We do put this out, and again, for districts as a resource in prioritizing your major maintenance. We've kind of worked through these. Sometimes we get 1 or 2 scores that are like in a bus barn, and the flooring isn't up to par from a condition point of view. We respect districts that say, you know what, we have higher priorities, and it's not a safety issue, it's not a health issue, the floor looks bad, and it's in the storage part of the building. So we're not going to spend $20,000 to replace the flooring or something like that. So these have to be, these scores then basically are scores. This is a system building within a building, a system by system score, and these are the low scores. So we have a 1 through 5 matrix for scoring. One is failure, 2 is poor, and it really has to do with the percentage of deferred maintenance related to each system that drives these. And then 3 would be good, fair, 4 is good, and 5 is excellent. So we just put your 1s and 2s here. JC, you're very familiar with these, and I'm sure your major maintenance, as you make notes and stuff, your major maintenance is often spent on the lower scoring systems. But we also know that you have other decisions.
No, and we actually will, these will be, so we actually show some completed. We show the ones to be completed, and if you were actually to go through here and look at it, literally the one we're saying we're holding off on is the piping underneath the concrete floor of Swoop Creek High School. It's galvanized piping. Well, we're not gonna tear up the whole building to replace galvanized piping. So that one is, we'll repair when needed. These need to be completely taken off. They're actually, when the guys came around and they said that the AC units doesn't work, there's no AC units in those 2 kitchens. It was a crazy concept. Okay, so if you take those 2 off, take ours completed and to be completed, we'll literally only have 1 sitting here that's just not jackhammering a concrete floor for galvanized pipe. So we agree with you. We use our money, we knock out 1s and 2s, and we'll be able to literally have them all done except for galvanized piping.
Wonderful. Yeah. Okay. And then on the next assessment, when we come back, and you know this, I'm sure, that we'll come back and we'll reassess this.
Yep.
And then obviously these numbers will change. And then we always run those reports back through you to make sure that, hey, did we capture everything? And that was one that probably we all missed along the way. Okay. With that, and then your major maintenance balance. I think that was the major maintenance definition. Your major maintenance balance then, if all things as of January 31st with encumbrances, we asked you what your balance would be, about approximately 400,000. Anticipated major maintenance payment, if all things were equal, would be about 1.7. You guys would be back up on July 1, give or take, around 2 million.
Correct.
So you guys are looking great. And then we always ask, poor JC, I'm sure you probably did this, but we always ask you to clean up the database, and if you have old work orders and you've already reported through the 680 process all the expenditures, we have you close those out. We close them out for you. You just designate them as closed, and then those that are still applicable we keep. So we can close those out and keep a fresh list up.
One expensive list.
And here's the cool part. So kudos goes out. So Warren is new to us in essence, and as a director, is Steve Rich retired. So in order to do this meeting, then we have a gal named Violet that is new to this system also, and those 2 got together and they literally pre-built all next summers, all into the system are already there. Yeah. So that's why you see so many pre-built in, ready to go, is those 2 actually got together and knocked it out. So what we are forecasting a full year, and now we actually have 3 projects that are forecasting a full 2 years out now that are pre-built for us to show that we have encumbrances for major maintenance. And they just did, this year's the first year we've ever been ahead of it.
So I do have a question for you. Do you guys have a computer automated system like a school do?
We don't. If you ask Warren will placate here, I think, loudly that he wants school dude, and he wants to go that way. So yes.
I mean, we've asked the question of other districts, and one of the things we looked at last summer in doing that was looking at getting a statewide system.
And honestly, I held back because I knew that was on the table for narrative and discussion. But if it fails, I would say that understanding Warren and what Warren's teaching me, he is so supportive of that system. We would move ahead with it because it allows him to maintain and run the system.
So, yeah, we'll talk about that here momentarily. So this is good. And so no, this is good to know. And I think honestly, this is looking ahead, being able to plan and what you're looking to do. And I think this is great work. And, really it's great to see.
No, I just said two other people did this.
So thank you, Warren, and Violet out there.
Yep.
Warren, you're our hero.
Yeah, you bet.
You just got thrown in.
You get credit or you get blamed. This is credit, so it's a good time to be.
I'll take it. I take both.
Okay, great. Component projects, I know JC's very familiar with this. If you do end up, you guys have, it looks like you have plenty of major maintenance and stuff, but in the future, the legislature has basically used component projects, which are capital projects, to supplement major maintenance when major maintenance is not sufficient to keep up with the needs of remedies within a district. So last year, the governor approved $21 million worth of component projects across state. We have a committee made up of 12 district representatives across state who kind of help score these and prioritize them. And it's a very thorough, I think, a very equitable process for prioritization. This year, there, I think, were 37 requests, and some are not necessarily even there, because still there because they move forward with major maintenance and districts to take care of them instead. But 1 through 16 are, or at least
They're currently still
there.
The
Yes,
bill.
yes, they're currently in the Senate side. I'm not sure, the House side, I think, they're there as well.
So that's 10.5 million, and those are a lot of times, if you're a smaller district particularly, but on larger districts as well, you only get like 95, 100,000 a year, literally, and that's like the TC and Arvada, Claremont, those guys, if they have a $600,000 roof, there's no way. I mean, they can't save for 6 years and not do anything. So this is kind of helpful with that as well as other things. But anyway, roofs are a big thing, air handler units, HVAC, stuff like that. 17 through 37 did not end up on the recommendations toward the select committee, so those weren't recommended. So I guess what we want to ask you here just for a moment, and we've been asking each district, is just out of curiosity, how do you prioritize? I know you guys just said you did. Do you have a committee that does that, or administrative team, and then does it basically flow through your board, school board for approval, or kind of talk about that just a little?
It does exactly what you just said. We literally start with the process of gathering. We have an open source document that everybody adds to. We take the open source document, we do some narrative with the principals one-on-one to see if it makes sense or if we can move forward. Then we take that grouping categorically, we put a number to it. We know we have X amount of general fund money and X amount of major maintenance money. And then I'd say weed out, we look at that option if they continue forward. Then we take it to the admin team, through the superintendent, we talk about it. And then we take it to the school board for approval. And once the school board gives us approval on that systems of projects, then they get built into, like you just saw, built into our work orders. And that's how we handled it this year. And we started earlier this year. So like right now, Warren has taken and already has received bids for summertime projects that are going to be happening when school ends that we've already then taken and received. If we need an architect, we bring in an architect, or if we're just doing bid specs.
Hey, Warren, this is probably refreshing for you. I mean, usually you just scoop snow and get it off, and now you actually get to do some desk work in the winter.
Yeah, I know. I came back to the snowy country. I'm not sure about that. But.
Yeah, here every once in a while you get a little bit of snow. Okay, so legislative session review. Charlie, you want to lead us through?
Sure, absolutely. Just stepped out for a moment, but so in talking about last summer, we did that major maintenance study. Looking at the RS means value, we would have bumped that up to $221 a square foot. We would have done a statewide funding for aid mechanism like a school dude. And would have been, had everything lined up to do that and to basically increase the CRV value from 2% to 2.5%, and then eliminate the 7-year phase-in. Everything that we had done except for the 7-year phase-in was killed off by the select committee. The only thing that has survived, unfortunately, is the well, it's a good thing, don't get me wrong. The elimination of the 7-year phase-in is still in there, but everything else has been taken out. And so that's in House Bill 32 right now. The good news is for your district, for the elimination of the 7-year phase-in, I believe Afton Elementary School is in year 5 of that phase-in, so it would get full major maintenance. If passed, it would come into effect July 1st. So you guys would get full major maintenance for Afton Elementary School.
Cool.
So that's a good thing. That was a plus, but a lot of the other stuff got taken to the wayside, and unfortunately, like the state funding for a computerized major maintenance system, like a school do, was not recommended for funding. So that was taken out. House Bill 33, still in process, but basically it revises our emergency language in the statute. Instead of just being on the building itself, it'll expand to the site of the school that were not previously covered under the emergency statute. House Bill 63, basically more stringent requirements for contractors to make sure they use Wyoming labor. I am not sure where this one is at right now. I do know House Bill 32 and 33 have passed the Senate part of it. I'm not really sure where it's at on the House side. House Bill 63, with more stringent requirements, I'm not sure where this one's at. House Bill 65, with the design build, it just eliminates the threshold for the minimum dollar amount. Used to be 500,000, that's now gone. That bill, I believe, I'm not sure where that bill's at actually either. And then House Bill 88, it adds a 3rd division to our department. When they merged us with the construction management group from ANI, it was just 2 divisions, construction management and school facilities. Now, we're going to have the operations division, which will allow people like myself and Troy, and then our project managers to work between both divisions and not get us hung up on, basically different ways of how they're funded. Construction management's funded a little different than school facilities, and it allows us to be able to do the work between both departments and help us have cleaner books for the accounting and not have to worry about that as much. So that's House Bill 88. And then our current, so Joint Resolution 3, I don't know anything about that one. That was one putting the onus back on the school districts. I think that one.
Yeah, I'm just curious. I mean, I'm sure you guys are aware of that one. To me, and this is just me off the top of my head, I'm thinking, I wouldn't think that districts would really be interested in going back and bonding their own projects and stuff like that. So I can't imagine that one going very far, but.
Well, they say that, so in our meetings that we've been having meetings here, business managers meeting, and they say that this one actually will hit litigation before the educational piece hits litigation. Because the districts that haven't had a chance to pick up newer buildings yet or through the process of an older building, but now they don't have the bonding capacity even to replace them to come to the standards that the rest of us have, that they're going to use this one as a first court document of inequity in the state of Wyoming for public education because of facilities not provided for education. So they said this will be the first court case that goes through the rest of that.
Interesting. So I have no idea where that one's at. Our capital construction bill right now, on the Senate side, they passed their version of the bill. It's been very drastically reduced. The House side, I believe they have passed their side, and so now it will go into a committee where they'll work out the differences. And they have not scheduled that committee meeting yet. So I imagine towards the end, it'll be a lot like last year at the 11th hour, they'll come to some sort of resolution. So there you go.
Okay, we already talked about FACT, our intention to make a recommendation, and we'll work again with the governor's office, select committee members, and commission to move forward to see what is appropriate. So I think we're right here at unique issues. I did want to put, though, maybe I should put up here real quick. Where was that? Probably this one here. I'll put something like SCD, right, State Construction Department, and district will
Let's go to the project.
Okay, good. So we'll continue to work with you, and it sounds like Brandon would be willing to go up there and do us on-site visit with you guys. So we're at the very last part of our facility plan meeting. Sometimes we don't cover everything, or something isn't covered. Is there anything else that the district would like to discuss before we close out the meeting?
I think we stated it in our district notes, just above that.
Okay. Well, appreciate you guys too, you know, and I'll say this honestly, all of us, I guess, have our little favorites. And I have to confess that JC is probably one of my favorite business managers in the state. He's always been excellent to work with, very professional, very helpful, and very foresightful. So we'll give kudos on that side. And we certainly appreciate Warren. I know that when you were in Cody, you were very gracious and gave me some really good tours up there and really helped me understand that district. And we're glad you're back down and in the home territory, and know you're doing a great job. And Alan, we sure appreciate you and your leadership within the district itself.
Alan, have you chosen a successor yet, or has the board?
Yeah, they interviewed last night, and they will name the successor tomorrow night at 5 o'clock.
Oh.
We want to congratulate you, Alan, on your retirement, and thank you for all the leadership that you provided for this district, and best of luck for you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, then, with that, staff, any more? Lance, anything else?
No, I don't have anything, thanks.
Okay, with that, then, we're going to go ahead and close out the meeting. I'll turn off the recording. Thanks for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you in the future.
Thank you.
You guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.